If you notice me looking down at any time, it's because I have a load of notes because I just want to make sure I'm not forgetting anything, and there's a lot of words that I don't know how to say. So, yeah. And I'm also getting a little bit of information from this book. It's How to Care for Children and Infants with Osteogenesis Imperfecta. And I got some information offline, and if I can find the links to what I used, I will leave them down below in the description with... Hi, my name is Kate, and welcome to or back to my channel. If you aren't new here, you know that this isn't my regular content for this channel. But today I'm doing a video about Osteogenesis Imperfecta. As you can probably guess, I have this disease, but I'm not going to be talking about myself today. I'm going to be just talking about OI itself and just explaining some things, because there aren't a lot of videos online that I could find, at least, about OI, which really surprised me because it's pretty common. So I'm just going to talk about what OI is, how you get it, like the genetics and stuff, what some treatments are, and a little bit of history. At the end of the video, I'm going to be talking about a little bit of the history behind OI and some interesting cases I found. So first, let's just get the simplest explanation out of the way. Osteogenesis imperfecta, also known as brittle bone disease or OI. You can call it either or, it doesn't really matter. Most people call it brittle bones when they're explaining it to somebody who doesn't know what they're talking about, but in their normal life they'll just refer to it as OI. So just a little explanation of the word because it seems pretty long and obnoxious. So osteo means bones, Genesis is the first book of the Bible, which means from the beginning, and imperfecta is pretty straightforward. It means imperfections or imperfectly made or whatever. So you put that all together, you get bone that is imperfectly made from the beginning of life. So it's just saying that it's because it's a difference between OI and osteoporosis, because osteoporosis is something you get later on in your life, but OI is something that you're born with. Okay, so collagen is a major protein in your body. And when it's of poor quality or your body doesn't make enough of it, it can cause your bones to fracture, it can cause your skin to be transparent, and it makes your muscles, like it makes a lack of muscle tissue, so you're not as strong and different stuff. Up to 90% of OI is due to changes in the collagen type 1. 10% don't have a mutation in the normal genes that cause OI, but they have variations in other proteins, like the ones that are responsible for maturing the collagen, to make sure maturing the collagen and making sure it's suitable for bone development. So it's basically the proteins that are supposed to rear up the collagen type 1 doesn't do its job, and it doesn't make the collagen strong and good enough to help produce the bone strength and stuff. So it could be caused by that, which is only about 10% of the time, but 90% of the time usually it's caused by a mutation in the collagen type 1. There are 4 types of OI, and I will go through what the types are now in a second. I'm just going to real quick go through the genetics and what causes OI, basically, when it comes to like your family. So most people with OI receive it from a parent, but 35% of cases it's an individual mutation. So I have something very, very long that I'm going to read from my iPad because I don't know half the words. I'm not reading it straight from here. I'm going through and reading parts of it and re-saying it as I do it. So the 2 ways you can get OI is 1, you can get it from a parent, or 2, you can start a new mutation in your own body, which is kind of straightforward. I mean, there's only 2 ways to get it. You either get given to you or you get it yourself. So in a rare case, OI can be caused by a parent's cell, by a percentage, just a percentage of a parent's cell having OI. So that means that the parent has a percentage of OI, but not enough to show symptoms or to need treatment or to say they have OI. It's just in a percentage of one of their cells hidden somewhere in their body, and it's just kind of there. And it doesn't affect them, but they can pass it on to their offspring. That's probably a really mean word, to their kids. For a child to inherit OI in a recessive manner, Both parents have to have it, but they don't technically have it. They just have the gene. They just carry the gene for it, but they themselves do not have it. But both of the parents need the gene for it to be a recessive manner. So a person who has just straight up OI like myself has a 50-50 chance of passing it on to each of their kids. It's not like more likely for the first kid or more likely for their 8th kid. It's just 50-50 chance each kid you have of you passing that on to your children. So usually when somebody has OI and they have kids and their kid has OI, it is the same form. It's very, very rare that your kid will have a more severe form or a less severe form than you. It's usually the exact form, although the type of fractures and the consistency of the fractures all depends on your child's active, their activities and everything they do. So if you have OI and you pass it on to your child, and they're breaking more than you did, or they aren't breaking or they aren't breaking the same amount as you did, it's just because it's the way they are as a child. Maybe they're more cautious, or maybe they're not as cautious as you were. And unaffected siblings with OI, like if you have a kid that doesn't have it, if you have one that does and one that doesn't, the one that doesn't have OI doesn't have a higher chance of passing it on to their kids. They're just back with the general population. For instance, I have a brother and he has a child and his child doesn't have OI, and he doesn't have a higher risk of having a kid with OI. His statistics for having a kid with OI is back with everybody else in the rest of the world. Like the person who lives across the street from us. Like it isn't a higher risk because I have it or because my dad passed it on to me. So unaffected siblings of somebody with dominant OI, they have no risk whatsoever of passing it on to their children because there's no gene in them. Unless it is just like the rest of the population. It goes back to normal statistics. If you have dominant OI and your siblings doesn't have OI, their risks of having children with it are the same as everybody else. But unaffected siblings of a child with recessive OI, they have a 67% chance of carrying on the recessive gene. And there is testing for that. If you have OI or if your child has OI and you want to get your others tested, it's not a problem at all. You can just go to your doctor and ask for it and they will do it for you, no problem. My brother got tested. He doesn't have it. He doesn't have any of the genes, which is why my nephew doesn't have it. So my brother's chance of having a kid with it is the same as the rest of the population that doesn't have it and isn't related to anybody with it. It just continues to be from ground zero if you don't have the gene. Okay, so there are 4 types of OI. When I was doing research online, I found a very, very, very BS site that said there are 14 to 18 types of OI. That is unrealistic. The way they were doing it was very, very stupid. They were saying that every different mutation causes a completely different set of OI, type of OI, which isn't true. There are 4 types of OI. As of right now, as I'm saying this, there are 4 types. Tomorrow morning I might wake up and there could be 80. But right now there are 4 types of OI. Type 1, 2, 3, and 4. Pretty straightforward. So type I, because it's written in Roman numerals. So type 1 OI is inherited. And the features for it are as followed. There are teeth issues. The whites of your eyes are blue. The whites of my eyes they're really blue today. Oh my god. But as you can tell, the whites of my eyes are blue compared to normal. Hearing aids are usually needed. There are usually a lot of hearing problems. Short statured is a big part of it. So being double jointed and having elasticity in body parts, that's a big thing. Thin skin is also a big thing, which I have. Your pain tolerance is usually higher. I'm not sure if that's with every type of OI, but I think it is. I know it definitely is with type 1. Curvature of the spine, like scoliosis and stuff, is pretty common with type 1, and having one foot shorter than the other is also a really, really big thing. Also, a thing with me that my doctor told me and I was shocked by because it seems so weird and it doesn't even make sense is that most of the time when everybody else is warm, I'll be cold, and when everybody else is cold, I'll be warm. I don't know why, and the doctor didn't explain it to me because I was a child, but that is a thing with me. My temperature varies from everybody else's temperature usually. It's usually a drastic difference. It's usually like the other way around for everybody else, which is really, really weird, and I don't know what causes that. I couldn't find any information online about it. But if you have OI, or if somebody you know has OI, and if they have this same problem, please leave it in the comments down below so I don't feel so weird. Okay, so type 2 is the most severe. These range very weird. It doesn't go least severe, a little bit more, and the worst. It goes common, most severe, a little bit less severe, and the most moderate, which is a little bit odd, but okay, if that's how you want to do it. People who made this information, you can do it. That's how everybody labels, that's how the doctors label the forms of OI. It's most common, most severe, a little bit less severe, and the most moderate one. So I don't know why, but okay. Type 2 is the most severe OI. It's life-threatening. Usually newborns are severely affected. It's usually caused by a new gene mutation. You're very, very small statured, undersized chest, and you usually have underdeveloped lungs. So that's pretty much it with type 2. It's usually very, very, very life-threatening. And a lot of children don't really make it past a young age. They usually don't make it into their teens with it, which is very, very sad. And type 3 is severe. But it's not as severe as type 2. There's usually no history of it in your family. You usually have fractures at birth, and x-rays usually show fractures from utero. And the features for it are usually hearing loss, loose joints, poor muscle development in arms and legs, and usually a barreled shaped rib cage, which means your chest is like out further and very, very deformed in like your chest area. And type 4 is moderate. It's traced through the family. Bones break easily before puberty, and then mostly before puberty, and then after that you're usually good. Normal or near normal eye color. Your teeth probably aren't affected, and you might have a spine curvature, and your and you might have loose joints, but that's really it. It's just, you just have to be a little bit more careful. It's not as severe as the other 3. It's the most easiest to deal with type of thing. And now I'm just gonna run through a quick little list of features that come from OI. If I missed any of these into the specific types, these are common with most all of them, except the last one, type 4, the most common, the most moderate one. So, bones that break easily, short statured, hearing loss, discolored or brittle teeth, blue sclera, skeletal deformities of limbs, chest and skull, scoliosis, respiratory difficulties, weak muscles, excessive sweating, which I did not know about and I do not have, thankfully. Constipation, apparently. Okay. Tendency to bruise easily, which I have really, really bad. If my wife breathes on me too hard, I bruise. Like, I'm so bad for that one. Loose joints and ligaments, and high-pitched voice, which I also didn't know about, so I found that very, very odd. Okay, so once you have a child, you find that it has OI, you find out what type it has. Now your next decision is what type of treatment you're going to give your child. I only can speak for personal experience, I can only speak for personal experience with type 1 OI, which I received intravenous treatment, IV treatment, for years. I'm not 100% sure how long, but for a very long time. So there's no cure for OI. It can just There's just ways to lessen the effect of it and to make it easier on your children and yourself. So treatment. So intravenous treatment is usually the most common thing that everyone goes through with OI, but the thing about it is you can't have that, I don't think, long term unless they have any treatments out now. But the last time I went and had treatment was in 2000 and I think 10 or 11, so I haven't been for a very long time, so they might have more long-term treatments now. So besides the treatment, there are preventive and controlling. The only thing you can do besides treatment is prevent and control the symptoms of OI. So basically be very, very careful, be very careful, and other than that, if you do find your child injured, or if you yourself have OI and you're injured, the most common things are casts, glasses, spinal braces, or any type of brace like slings and stuff. Physical therapy is also common. Hearing aids are usually needed. Living a healthier lifestyle helps, and in a lot of the cases with the more severe types, you need surgery to get like spinal rods and rods in like your limbs and different stuff. Sometimes you may need caps on your teeth if your teeth are very brittle. And some people with respiratory problems obviously need oxygen, and some people may need wheelchairs or walkers or crutches and stuff like that. So those are really the only things you can do for OI. Just being careful in the first place is the biggest thing to do. Being careful is the only really thing you can do yourself to help prevent fractures or breaks, even though that doesn't really help. I have a few stories of my own I can tell you guys in the next video if you want to hear it, about how easy it is to break when you have OI. I only have type 1, so I can't imagine for type 2 or 3. So now here's a little bit of really old history on OI and a very interesting case I found. So the earliest known case of OI was in a partially mummified infant skeleton from ancient Egypt. And it's apparently housed in a British museum in London, which would be very, very cool to see if it's still there. So in 1835, Lopston, apparently, I think that's his name, coined the term Osteogenesis Imperfecta, and he was one of the first to correctly understand what the disease is. Other names for OI are Lopston disease, brittle bone disease, blue scarlet syndrome, and fragile bone disease. The one I could find the most information on is a man called Hop Frog Boy. So I'll insert a picture here of him. So he was born Samuel Parks. So he lived both cursed and charmed, according to some articles. He was born on October the 20th in 1874 in Boston, and his first public appearance was at the age of 19 at a medical event for students in 1893 at the Chicago World's Fair. He was likely born with osteogenesis imperfecta. So by Park's 16th year of public displays, he could recount 58 broken he could recall 58 broken bones over the course of his life. He likely broke many more in his youth, and even more as he was being born. So the many fractures that obviously weren't taken care of, because back then nobody knew what OI was. It wasn't even a thing back then. It was just him being deformed and being very fragile. Likely the fractures is what caused his dwarfism, and the way his body is shaped and looks. Likely it was caused by the doctors or nobody healing his fractures properly, like casts and braces, which is why it's such an important thing now when a child breaks. The first thing your doctor wants to do is put a cast on them so that something like this doesn't happen. Which makes sense, but also if you do look like this and you have a disease, it's not your fault. You shouldn't feel guilty or bad about it. So he got his name the Frog Boy because his bowed legs were twisted and bowed, and like I said, it's probably due to his fractures not being healed properly. He decided to make a living off being a human oddity. It's basically like a very, very, very old freak show that he would go do, which I think is very, very awesome. And then in 1906, he found the love of his life and married somebody from Maryland, Ida Grinville. He married her in Baltimore. But then a year later, when the marriage bliss was still going, his manager decided to take off with all his money. Left him penniless in Georgia. Basically, his manager took all his belongings and money and anything of any value and was like, I'm out, see ya, and left. So a year later, he had already rebuilt his fortune. He'd already bounced back. And he had, well, not he, and also him and his wife had their first child. A healthy and happy little boy. Although, again, the happiness was very, very short-lived. As Park prepared to welcome his second child into the world a year later, he found himself mourning for his wife, Ida. Both her and the infant died during childbirth, which is very, very sad. And in this article, they have it worded very, very cute. It says, Parker was devastated and his shattered heart mirrored his broken exterior. By 1909, Sam Parker was a widower with a young child to feed. And his mobility was becoming very, very difficult as his body began to get more and more weak. I guess he wasn't trying to take care of himself as much anymore because his wife and his second child passed away, and now he was left disabled to care for his first child all by himself. So he began to he began to isolate himself because he knew his body was not doing well. He knew he had to try and care for his son the best he could, and he also knew that the second chance at love was very, very unlikely. But then in 1910, when he was touring Canada with the Great Patterson Show, he met a dwarf girl from Australia. The little lady was charming, and Sam found her adorable. And as he did when he was younger, he refused to let anything limitate him, and he decided that he was going to date her. So the same year, Sam married Helen Hillmill, the famous Princess Wee Wee, and the two lovers were ever more billed together as the world's strangest couple. So they continued to tour for a few more years, and then Sam eventually did welcome a second child, another son, into his life, as Helen gave birth in 1911. So after retiring, Sam worked a small newsstand in El Paso until he passed away October the 23rd, 1923 at the age of 49. So that's basically all I could find on OI, and that is it for today's video. Just a few final notes. If your child has OI and you're freaking out about it, just remember that that's all this child is going to know. I grew up with OI, and it's all I ever knew, and I am not going to complain. It's harder for the parents. It's more harder on the parents than it is on the children because it's a child growing up, and that's all they know. It's like somebody being born blind. You pity them, but they'll say, no, don't pity me. I grew up this way. It's all I ever know. So don't shelter your children too much. Obviously, make sure you do take precautions, especially when they're an infant, but don't make them live in a bubble. Let them live their own life and be as independent as they can be, and let them, and at some point, they might not, they might have to learn their own limitations. I grew up with OI, and it was the only life I knew, and I'm sure it was a lot harder on my parents than it ever will be on me. Even with breaks, I took everything in good parts, and if your children are raised with the right mindset, they'll take it all in good parts too. And don't let your children see you freaking out about them doing certain things, because a lot of the times that just makes children want to do it more. So take and love your children, and of course care for them, and be sure that they don't do dangerous things, but know that there is going to become a point where they will do something that you told them not to do, and they will hurt themselves because of it, but it isn't your fault. Children just sometimes need to act out even if they have a disease and they know they shouldn't have done something. They will do it anyways. That's just how children work. That's just how life works. So if your kid has OI, it is difficult, but it's a lot harder on you than it is on them. Now, of course, I'm speaking for the more milder forms of OI, not the most severe or life-threatening ones, because I can't imagine how painful that must be to a parent knowing that this is happening to their child and they can't prevent it. So if your child has OI, yes, be careful, yes, be cautious, but know that your child also needs to be a child. It's the only life they know. It's how they grew up, so it's not going to be as hard on them as it is on you. So thank you guys so much for watching, and I hope you guys will stay tuned. If you guys want to see another video about this, me telling my story, just leave it down in the comments below and I will film it. And if you guys have any questions about OI, I will answer it in the next video. So just leave those questions down below. And if you yourself have OI, or if somebody you know do, let me know in the comments down below. I think that would be interesting to see if anybody who watches these vlogs have it. And yeah, so I do vlogs, so you can check out those videos if you'd like. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.